Kick off today's conversation. We're the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, and my name is Alisher Barikanoff. We have our team here on the line, and we do these monthly partner spotlights the first Wednesday of each month. And we're very happy to have Mr. Todd Schmiedler and his team here to talk about health cores. I had a conversation with Todd not too long ago and understood that he understands workforce development in the Commonwealth, understands work-based learning, apprenticeships, internships, and all the lingo that sometimes we throw around in government and on the workforce side. But Todd, he comes from the private sector and has really utilized what is available to support other businesses. And as these partner spotlights are meant to be, they're to help spark innovation, help spark some of the best practices going on. And we wanted to make sure you all are familiar with what's going on in this field. So without further ado, Todd, you can take it away, share what you're doing, share your background, how you came to this role, and I think it would be very helpful to our participants to understand your transition and what you're doing now.
Great. Thank you, Alisher. And thanks for those of you that have been able to attend. I see in our participant list several friends that we've known each other for several years. So thank you for making time. My name is Todd Schmiedler, and my official title, I guess, is I founded a consulting company called Thumbprint Consulting. And my background comes from the social service, higher education background early in my career. And then I got recruited away and went into the healthcare with Norton Healthcare, spent 5 years as a VP there, in charge of their day-to-day operations of both the Children's Hospital Foundation and the Norton Healthcare Foundation. And then left Norton and spent 10 years at a long-term care company called Trilogy Health Services. We built the organization from when I arrived. I think we had 59 locations and 6,500 employees. Through the 10 years, we had advanced to 121 locations, about 16,000 employees, several additional service lines in pharmacy and rehab. And I ended my career as the Chief Engagement and Innovations Officer. And part of my role was running all of the workforce development strategy. I also had a stint as the head of recruitment for like 6 years. Did all of HR for a couple of years, even ran marketing for a little over a year. So it's a broad spectrum. I left there about 2.5 years ago to start my own company. And one of the core reasons that I started the company was to extend some of the opportunities of knowledge and learning from that experience around workforce with other organizations, specifically in Kentucky. Because we tend to struggle with workforce, as we all know. I think for most of us, we'd say it's a leading cause of stress in our healthcare lives and concern. And so I saw opportunities that would enable us to take some of the things that we had built on a company basis and really start applying them across the state and be able to give back to the community and the Commonwealth that I so treasure. And hopefully my kids, which if you've ever met me before, you probably know we have 10 kids. My goal is for them to want to live in Louisville and Kentucky so that I'm close to them as well as my grandkids and hopefully eventually my great grandkids. And you do that by helping them get connected to good people and equal as important, good jobs. And healthcare is one of those areas where I think that there is a plethora of good jobs. The challenge is getting it connected and an opportunity to get started in those careers oftentimes. So I'm going to spend a little time today talking particularly about our Kentucky Health Corps program. I did a presentation, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago to the Leading Age National Conference, which is the nonprofit long-term care organizations across the country. So I'm going to use that presentation as kind of a baseline. I'm not going to get into some boring presentation. Hopefully you won't find it that way, but I will use it as a framework for the discussion so that we can keep on track and make sure that as we're going through that, that I share information, but I want to strongly encourage you that if you've got a question, don't hesitate to either interrupt me. As I told you, I got 10 kids, and so I'm used to getting interrupted all the time, and that's perfectly fine. Or put your hand up in our Zoom, and I will, find a break point, and you'll be able to answer your question, because this presentation is not a presentation. It's really an opportunity for us to have a conversation. And, the goal of this for me isn't to share information. It is in hopes that this information would be engaging to you and help you in some way be able to run your organization a little bit better and maybe find partnerships or opportunities that are going to be unique and you may not have thought of yet. And so that's my goal. And it doesn't work if you've got questions and we're waiting to the very end, or you don't feel like that this is a conversation. So I hope you'll take it. It's a little bit more difficult to do that in a Zoom setting and a short amount of time, but I want to encourage you to think about that. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see the screen and make sure that it is actually the PowerPoint presentation.
It looks like it's up.
Okay. All right. Can you all see that? I get nervous about this, but I'm going to try to put it on the screen only, so that play it. Which screen are you seeing now?
The one with the notes.
Okay. We don't want to show that. So hold on one second. Let me see if I can fix that really fast, just so it's the largest screen possible for you guys from a visualization standpoint. Let me see if that worked.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hopefully you could see that. So as I mentioned, I gave this presentation. We're all familiar with the workforce shortage. Okay. You probably wouldn't be on this call if you weren't feeling some sort of pressure around either the workforce shortage or you're responsible for helping bridge that gap. I noticed that there were some of my friends from KCTCS and Galen, as an example. We're all in this thing together. We all know that it's a challenge. And in this particular slide, it just shows from a long-term care perspective that it's challenged. I don't care if you're long-term care, your primary care, your hospitals. All of my friends in healthcare, substance use disorder, they acknowledge the same thing. We got a crisis going on, and if we don't get some sort of innovative solutions, we are slowly going to implode. I mean, unfortunately, there's going to be a need for our services, maybe even greater than ever. But if we don't have people to provide those services, it's going to be difficult for us to maintain our organization and, frankly, our sanity. And so when I think about that, this is, when you break it down to the simplest of terms, it's a supply and demand issue. Okay. And isn't it just nice to think in simple terms related to our needs, but how, my mom has always said to me that life is simple. It's just not easy. I mean, this is simply a supply and demand issue, but honestly, if anybody tells me that they find workforce right now and hiring and retaining good people to be easy, please interrupt me right now. Raise your hand. Tell me what the secret is, because I can tell you that you are going to make a boatload of money across this country if you can help other people do it. I'm not going to be able to solve everything on this conversation. I'm hopeful that in this conversation, we might be able to identify one or two ways that it might be able to help you along your journey. So again, simple stuff. The difference between recruiting and pipeline, I'm not going to get into this very much. I am going to actually send this out to you after this, to Asher, and you all can share this. But we have become so focused on recruiting because of the dire need that we end up being in a position where, for me, we are literally that analogy of I'm feeding fish, but I'm not necessarily actually catching any fish. I need to create fishermen, and that's the pipeline. But I'm so in crisis over the openings we currently have, it's hard to get to a pipeline truly. Uh, so what is AmeriCorps? I often say it in the simplest of terms. AmeriCorps is the domestic Peace Corps. So the government did a couple decades ago, they looked at the model that was created after World War II on the Peace Corps, which was our effort to basically create democracies in other communities and to help third world countries be able to understand the value of democracy and how America can help. We created the Peace Corps. Okay, that just meant individuals from America would commit to public service in these international communities to help foster their water shortages, their education shortages, those things that are core to their existence. And we use that as a tool to promote democracy across the world. All right. About 30 years ago, we realized, you know what? We got a lot of internal problems. We got a lot of things that we need related to, really service inside of America. And so the government created this organization called AmeriCorps. And it is functionally the ability for Americans, all ages, all backgrounds, who are interested in giving their time to actually what is defined as public service, inside of an ability for them to not only gain experience and knowledge, but also make a difference in our communities. So when we talk about public service, we usually talk about it in terms of, what is that? It means that you're basically helping strengthen communities. And those areas that have been most prominent in this have been in the fields of education. For example, some of you may be familiar with Teach for America. Okay, where we promote and these volunteers go into schools and help tutoring in communities. You may also be familiar with AmeriCorps impacts the nonprofit world in social services. So a lot of social service organizations have AmeriCorps members who usually they're college students or just graduating from college, and they want to make a difference, and yet they also want to gain some skills and be in an organization, and this is the way that they functionally do that. And I will say that after COVID, COVID did a lot of things to us. I will encourage you to say that one of the things COVID did for us was to help our country actually see our healthcare system as a national priority and a public service. We talked a lot about it, but the same investments that were made in things like education and other things weren't being made in healthcare to the degree they are now. And so AmeriCorps expanded into healthcare, and that is how the Kentucky Health Corps became in existence. So as you can see with this slide, there are a lot of people who are involved in AmeriCorps programs across the country. This is not a small thing. These are, obviously hundreds of thousands of people who are interested in serving in public service. So we talked about who benefits from this. Obviously, the community, organizations like some of you, and obviously those people who serve as what AmeriCorps calls as members. What a member does basically is somebody who's interested in doing this service, getting into healthcare, they get to choose their length of service. That's how many hours they choose. They get to be a part of choosing the location by which that they do that service at, and they get to choose the area of their passion. So if they're passionate about healthcare, there are healthcare programs that are established and healthcare hosts. And I'll get a little bit more into that as we go through this. And in particular, I just want to give you a framework here so that when we talk about the Kentucky Health Corps, you have some sort of background in this. So We're going to talk about the Kentucky Health Board. Our goal, Family Scholar House, which is a nonprofit organization that's been around for several decades. Their original mission was to serve single parent families and help them break the cycle of poverty through education and workforce training. Over the past 2 decades, they've expanded significantly in both the populations that they serve, how they serve, and even the geographic reach. I think they're in 37 states currently, serving roughly 30 to 40,000 individuals with their services. When COVID hit, AmeriCorps, as part of the funding, the ARPA funding, AmeriCorps received $1 billion over a 5-year period. That part of that, 400 million of that, went to create the first ever public health AmeriCorps program in its existence. So a focus on healthcare. All right. Family Scholar House and myself, we submitted an application and were awarded the 3rd largest public health AmeriCorps program in the country. And what our program does is it supplies supplementary healthcare services to, at first, it was leading age Kentucky facilities. We've expanded now into all other non-profit healthcare organizations. For a member to serve, the host site must be a nonprofit. There is no exception to that. Okay, they do not consider a for-profit hospital or a for-profit entity, long-term care. It doesn't matter to be public service. So it automatically, I'm just going to tell you, if you're an organization that's for-profit, I'm sorry that this is not going to directly help you, but it could directly impact the way you think about things. So I encourage you to maybe stay on to learn about what's going on, because there are other kinds of opportunities that may exist that are complementary to this. You just wouldn't be able to participate in our existing Kentucky Health Corps program. So what we do is we help recruit, in particular students, you'll see in just a second, and place them in host sites to get experience. So what does that mean? We got $2.8 million. We're placing somewhere around 200 members in a cohort model style. And our model has been to partner with great organizations like a KCTCS school, or Galen. It has been a great partner of ours, even outside of nursing, but primarily in nursing, because clinical is our focus area. That doesn't mean we don't do others. You'll see it in just a second, but clinical is the greatest need. And we help recruit those students and place them into a host site, usually a hospital, long-term care, or primary care facility. They agree to a certain number of hours. Okay, these are some of our partners. They agree to the member agrees to a certain number of hours. We'll talk about those blocks, and to serve in a host site. That host site is simply a nonprofit employer of healthcare. Okay, it can range from any of those that we've already talked about. Their service term, our fiscal year begins August the 1st and ends July 31st, which is really convenient with our target population of students, because that's actually the traditional academic year for most education institutions. And so when we recruit a member in, their service term is the same as their academic term. One of the terms on here is host site supervisors. We'll get into a little bit of what a host site does, but fundamentally a host site is doing nothing more than they would probably do for their clinical rotations, nothing more than they would probably do for interns or co-ops. All of those terms, are unique to certain schools and things, but in our kind of vernacular, all of those things are kind of similar in the way that we handle that. So we have co-ops because the school uses the word co-ops. We have externships because the school or program uses externships. We have clinicals because that's what they use. And so don't get caught up as much in the words as much as understanding that our hope is that we're able to connect students into facilities to get some really good work-based learning experience at your facility while supplementing your current staff and providing more hands and hearts within your facility to serve the residents of Kentucky. That's our core group, okay? These are some of the areas that we have roles that we've done placement in. So it's not just nursing, it's not just, I mean, we're in dietary, we're in environmental services, we're in activities or marketing, we're in social services. So these are some of the roles that we can place people in. Now, when we talk about service hours, the way AmeriCorps works is that member student commits to a block of hours. These are the blocks that they have options to serve inside our program, okay? What I will tell you that's important here is you know that you get a commitment, okay, as a host site and as an education partner, there is a commitment that that student says, I want to be involved with this for this many hours over that fiscal year, okay? 20%, we're doing a very unique program. We're, to our knowledge and to the knowledge of the leaders across AmeriCorps, we are the only program who is focused on maximizing the paid training time for those members so that their skill set and education are at the utmost priority for the host sites to realize the greatest benefit of their work-based learning. Meaning that if they're a nursing student, which is the target population for us, we can actually pay them up to that 20% of that time that they committed to. We can pay them while they're in class. Again, let me repeat that because I don't know any other group that can do this. We pay them while they're sitting in class in their nursing program because that training is what they're going to use in their work-based learning experience and as their profession. And so, you know, we do that. And one of the reasons that Family Scholar House was the leader of this is because we saw those disadvantaged populations that we serve on other aspects, single moms, foster alumni, low income. They struggled to balance between the family, you know, running a family, their classroom, their clinical time, and a part-time job to be able to pay bills, okay? Or on the other side of that, if they don't have to pay the bills, managing the number of the dollars that they have in student loans when they finish their program. So what we've tried to do is create an opportunity that we can help pay and offset some of that cost for them while they're doing their service. So the hours spent at the host site can be clinical hours. They typically are clinical hours and extern hours in addition to the number of clinical hours required by their program. So they're getting paid when they normally would not be getting paid. They're getting paid in class, they're getting paid for their clinical hours. And in addition to that, whatever the remaining amount of hours are for their term, they then place that as an additional extern hours within the host site. And if there's any questions related to this, if I don't see that you have your hand raised up, Megan, could you be, could you help me in that area in case I can't see it and notice it?
Yeah, I've been tracking the chat.
Great, thank you. Megan runs the day-to-day operations of everything going on with Kentucky Health Corps. You know, she allows me to be able to share this, but then she'll come in later if I've said anything that wasn't correct, and she'll fix it for me. And so, oftentimes, our members obviously concerned primarily about this, but also our host sites are like, okay, what's the advantage for a student, to become an AmeriCorps member, a Public Health Corps member, and do their service at my site? Well, this is the advantage. Okay, they are getting paid real dollars And they also at the end, they get paid on a twice a month basis. Okay, a steady amount of money that AmeriCorps calls a living allowance. Okay, it's a little bit different than a wage or a salary, like an hourly wage or a salary, in that the biggest difference that I will tell you that impacts the member is that none of the money that you see on living allowance actually goes against them maintaining their benefits, whether that be housing support, food subsidies, childcare subsidies, or even their Pell Grant status. So they aren't risking by taking a part-time job over here at Target. Needless to say that they're not getting any real work-based learning experience in healthcare. They're not risking that they're making too much money over here, and then all of a sudden it's going to affect their Pell Grant status or going to affect some other benefit that they're getting, and all of a sudden they hit what is typically called the benefits cliff, and they're actually incentivized not to work that much. Okay, in this program that doesn't exist. The second piece that you'll see on there is a Siegel Education Award, which is what I call a souped up word for a scholarship. At the end of their term, they get an award based off of the number of hours of their commitment, which you can see on this screen. And that is put into a pot that they can use toward any accredited education institution to continue their education, or they can use that toward paying off student loans. Those are the primary two ways that we find members use that. There are other things that are kind of tweaked, but those are the two that we see most. So let me give you an example. We have a lot of nursing students, Galen, Big Sandy, who are serving at Pikeville or ARH or other great organizations, and they are coming in and doing 900-hour commitments. Okay, where they're getting paid, back here, they're getting paid for 180 hours during that service term for their classroom stuff. About another roughly 200 to 350, depending on the program, hours or clinical hours, they're getting paid that while they're at the host site. And then another additional amount of, let's say, 300 to 400 hours of additional externship working directly with that host site in addition to those clinical hours to get more experience understanding that host site's culture, their people, their processes, their standards, their systems, so that when they are graduating and they go to work for that host site, as an employee, they are hitting the ground running. Think of the most souped up onboarding you've ever experienced at a host site. That's what they're getting while they're doing this process, so that they are ready and confident from a knowledge and skill standpoint to start to apply those skills immediately upon becoming an employee of that healthcare organization. So speaking of the healthcare organization, what does the host site supervisor do? Okay, because that's really the priority of a host site, is to provide a supervisor who basically attends a simple, short training about the program so that they understand it, understand what type of expectations we have for members. We have coordinators that Megan oversees that are regional coordinators that work with what we consider to be the stakeholders involved, which are the members themselves, the host site, and the schools that we're typically partnered with, and they work because the other important thing that a host site needs to understand is they don't have to employ people. They're not cutting any checks. Those people are not employees. They are employees of Family Scholar House. Family Scholar House does all the payroll. Family Scholar House takes on the risk and liability. We are endorsed by the Kentucky Hospital Association. We've been vetted by several, associations. Our agreements have already been vetted by legal in multiple, large scale, sophisticated organizations. What goes on is that coordinator then manages, if you have, no different than if you had somebody for clinicals and there was a problem with a student on clinicals, you would go to the school's person who's running their clinical program and say, I'm having problems with Sally because of this. She's not showing up on time, or she's, her language is poor, or, she's not working out well. Our coordinators serve in that similar role, and we will fire someone. Okay, it has to be mutually beneficial between all parties, or otherwise this program and the integrity of what we're trying to do does not work. Okay, and I've been on the employer side of this. I built a similar program for Trilogy, and it does not work if the people at the site, the host site, are saying, I feel like I'm victimized here and I have to keep them. Nope. What we have to do is have standards around what our expectations are for our future workforce. And this is where the difference between recruitment and pipeline comes into this program. We are creating a pipeline of the workforce that we want, not trapped into hiring people in a recruitment scenario where we have to just get breathing people to fill a spot. I know you still have to do that. You have to worry about that regardless of this program. This program can help you develop a pipeline that hopefully it'll reduce and minimize the impact that's needed over here related to the recruitment. You get to help the members set their schedules. You approve the timesheets, and it's very easy. It's not complicated. It's literally an electronic kind of check off. Did Sally work these hours? This is what she submitted. Yes, she did. No, she didn't. The whole site supervisor participates in a mid-year and end of service eval, which we all want to make sure that there's accountability, and, we also connect from a coordinator and leadership standpoint with them to see about any barriers that may have arisen. And that's another specialty that Family Scholar House really brings to the table that's unique, is that, those social determinants of health are also the social determinants of education and employment. And so things like transportation, housing, childcare, that is at the core of what Family Scholar House has now been doing for decades. And so they bring that to all the members. And frankly, they bring awareness of that to the supervisors on site that often lead to better services and opportunities to connect for existing employees, even outside of the program. Okay, so just so you know, here's how AmeriCorps is actually, when you look at the funding, this is where a lot of the money goes. So when, in a healthcare perspective, the Healthy Futures is typically where most of the healthcare dollars come from. So currently in AmeriCorps across the country, a little over 21% of that money is designated to healthcare. So when I say that, that means there is not only a direct opportunity related to what Family Scholar House is doing with the Kentucky Health Corps. Our goal is to grow the program across the state because, as we mentioned, we are placing 200 members across facilities. I can tell you that we've already placed, I think, about 130 of those 200 members, and we've got about another 350 in the pipeline right now. Okay, we need more opportunities to share this to recruit a few more host sites, and we're going after additional dollars. Our goal is to triple this program next year in funding. So instead of 200 people, our goal is, we think we could place 600 people if we continue to add quality host sites who are looking for cohorts of people, not one-offs. You're looking to add 10, 20. I mean, I think Pikeville, we recently talked to them about adding as many as 90 people to their facility. It doesn't mean they're all working 90 people all at the same time doing the same thing, and you got a herd of cats walking through your facility as 90 people doing the same thing. That's not how this works. Okay. What we do is then break down those cohorts, because the host site has input and authority about the scheduling. They work with the member and they work with the school to make sure that that works out, but they still control the schedule. So what our funding includes, so that is the allotment of paying for those members and their living allowance and the Siegel Education Award. It also pays for those coordinators and for us to run the program. It can also pay for us to make sure that we have to find the in-kind match and that sort of stuff, in a lot of AmeriCorps, but we've already taken care of all of that. Okay, really, for whether you're an education partner who says, hey, I'd love to offer my students the ability to get into paid programs while they're doing class and clinicals and give them an opportunity to also get, high quality work-based learning externship at actually healthcare organizations that they're probably going to go work for. If that's of interest to you, we'd love to talk about how we're currently working with several of our education partners to share that with their students, and the ability for those students to not have to work at a Walmart, a Kroger, someplace else, or go further in debt, and they become more knowledgeable, they feel more comfortable, and we don't lose. So I sit on the board of JCTC's foundation, and there was a startling number that I saw last semester, that our retention rate of our students at JCTC, Jefferson Community and Technical College, of the ones that we did not retain, 87% of them did not come back because it was non-academic related. It was financial. Okay. Our goal is we can't continue to lose people in nursing schools, in other programs, social service programs, because we're not giving them a way to connect to meaningful work and pay that's going to allow them to be able to make it through so they can become a productive member of our employee staff. On the other side, I will tell you, as a potential host site, if you're an employer in healthcare and a nonprofit, we'd love to connect with you to talk to you about how we can place a cohort of students so that you not only get that talent coming to you in a pipeline scenario that allows you to recruit more efficiently, allows you to set those expectations about who you are and how somebody's going to act when they become an employee, but it does that in a fairly risk-free environment. We take care of the pay, we manage them as employees, so there's no turnover related to you, and we're doing all of that as a service for you at no cost to you. And just so you also understand, Family Scholar House isn't some profit-bearing company. Of the $2.8 million that they're awarded, 2.2 million plus of that is living allowance dollars. The vast amount is going directly to the people who are trying to serve. Our goal is to facilitate that and get them meaningful experiences, and thus creating a relationship with a potential employer where the employer and the member gain additional knowledge, skills, and understanding about expectations so that we can easily pipeline them in to becoming an employee on your team that's productive from day one. These would be next steps. In this case, you don't need to worry about that. We are the next step. And so at this point, if you're okay, I'm going to kind of open up for questions. Hopefully that gave you some idea. And even if you have an interest in seeing a little bit of the marketing materials and stuff that we've done in partnership with Host Schools, I'm happy to share that in this call too. Questions? When I get crickets, I usually think either I did such a poor job that nobody has anything, or people are asleep because it's around that lunchtime hour, or potentially they're processing. I always hope for the latter.
Todd, I got a coffee as a pick-me-up, so I'm not falling asleep here. I'm just waiting for others to ask, but I did have a quick question, Todd. I obviously think you are doing a good job. You're incorporating those partners into the fold, with having Family Scholar House, having the community college system, employers, all that engage. My question to you is in regards to AmeriCorps. We know that, like you said, it's a national service versus Peace Corps abroad, you're doing it here in the States. Is there, do you see that there's a clear trajectory of people that do AmeriCorps? Does that lead to careers, or is there like a little gap sometimes between your volunteer work to career in that field? Just can you
That
speak on
is
that?
that is a great question, Alisher, and one that we thought of even before we started this program, because you know traditionally, I'm gonna be honest with you, traditionally there is some sort of gap between their service and them going to an employer. We, in our effort to focus on making sure that we connect with the right population to get this out there, we're not doing traditional models. We're not posting it and praying. Okay. And I will tell you, AmeriCorps across the country, that is their traditional model. We post this opportunity. We want you to do it. But AmeriCorps does not pay a lot. Okay. So you usually get kind of a limited number of people. Our philosophy was we wanted three core criteria for our population focus. Number one, somebody who is already passionate and interested in learning more and getting real skills and knowledge in healthcare. So we don't want a generic person, okay? Because it's not going to work in healthcare. Healthcare is unique. You're dealing with people living, dying, and all stages in the middle, okay? The second was we were really focused on disadvantaged populations and trying to connect with disadvantaged populations. And I consider a disadvantaged population a college student who has to take out severe amounts of loans to be able to get it through, to be able to be successful, because they are going to be disadvantaged for the next 10 years. Okay. And if you look at any of the stats, it will tell you they're delayed in home ownership, they're delayed in marriages, they're delayed in kids. And the number one reason for all of those delays is financial reasons. And the number one thing cited is student loans. Okay. And so we saw that as a component of a disadvantaged population, not just, gender and ethnicity and income. And we definitely address that. Single parents, but we also saw this population has a need because they will become disadvantaged if we don't help them. Okay. So that's criteria 2. The third criteria we were looking for are because they're engaged in wanting to be in healthcare, and because we're going to help them be able to jumpstart their career by placing them in places of real merit, we wanted to find a population where we could hire in cohorts. Okay, because what I learned in the 10 years at Trilogy in particular was the number one reason that people did not make it in our company was the fact that they did not feel part of the community. And as much as we say we want to welcome you in, as much as we do our onboarding, and honestly, onboarding, it's vomiting all over most people for about 2 or 3 days. They can only grab about this much of the onboarding, and then they forget about 80% of it. And and as much as we do mentors, and as much as we do, the number one thing I saw in the difference was when they would come in with a peer group. When one was having trouble, they didn't want to come to the supervisor and tell them they were having trouble. They didn't want to come to HR and tell them they were having trouble. They didn't even want to come to a teacher at a school that was partnered with us. Okay. They would go to another peer and they would say, I don't understand what they're asking from us here. Can you help me get up to speed? Now, if you think about our education system over at least the last 40 years, because that's what I can speak to, we have created an environment where we encourage that. Projects together. We now do team collaborations. We're encouraging people to work together, but yet when we hire people, we hire them as an individual. We totally break the thing that we say is important to them and hope that they can reconnect into a new team. Our philosophy was, instead of doing that, why don't we go to a Bluegrass, a Big Sandy or a Galen, and go in and hopefully get 20 or 30 of their nursing students within a class. And then when they've got questions, they're working together to answer them. And as a result of that, we're not losing them because they feel all alone and they don't know who to talk to. Because the other thing that I found, and again, I think I mentioned this, I've got 10 kids and they range from an age of 13 to getting ready to turn 32. Okay. And what I've found is, as they've gotten, the younger population really does not want to necessarily come out and say that they're having transportation problems, or they're having childcare issues or something like that to a supervisor. What my hope was is that our coordinators could be in part that voice where it wasn't your employer and it wasn't your school. It's this group that all they care about is your well-being. That's our job. Okay. Because we care about your well-being and that's being met, it's actually going to increase the likelihood that you're going to retain and graduate from that program, and that you're going to have a better experience and you're going to retain as an employee and eventually get hired. And so our goal was have a great experience, care more, let us care more about them, okay, and their experience while you're providing a great work-based learning and education knowledge experience. Let us come in and fill those gaps that are in, and let peers become a support mechanism in addition to the employer, in addition to the school, in addition to us, so that everything becomes rounded out. And I will tell you, we see the success of that. And we saw an extremely high rate of our first year people get jobs with the host sites, because the host sites need them and they know what to get. But also the host site has the ability to say, you know what, Sally was on AmeriCorps and she was good, but I don't think we want to put her in this position, and that allows them to discern who they want and who they don't. But it doesn't mean that Sally can't get a position with somebody else because of the experience they have with the host site. Does that make
And
sense?
that
Yeah, go
number
ahead, Megan.
is 47% of our members from last program year were retained in some capacity as an employee. Some were full-time and some were part-time. So that was huge for us to see that the pipeline is working.
And just so you know, that includes a lot of high school students who were seniors in high school. And it also includes, it does not include the number of people that we had go into the second year of our program.
Yep.
So there's a population that, because it's not limited to 1 year, if you're an RN student, I'll use Big Sandy as an example. We have a partnership with them in the RN where we communicate this out. They're going to be in a 2-year program. Okay, so they get in the first year, they get in the second year, they're making roughly about $20,000 each year related to their experience with us, while they would not be making anything, okay, previously. But they can extend that out and they know I've got a solid place where I have a base. I don't have to go looking at McDonald's or Target and someplace else. I've got this money that's coming in and I'm getting paid, even though our rate is equivalent to a $12 an hour without the scholarship. Okay, the scholarship adds about another $4 an hour roughly. Okay, but we're paying them when they otherwise would be spending the same amount of time but no pay. So think about half of the time that they do, if they're doing 1,200 hours, for example, they're going to get paid around 600 hours for classroom and clinical time that they would not have gotten paid for. So you really think that for their 1,200 hours, they were already going to spend those 600 hours. So they're really on the 600 hours as let's call it a part-time job, extern kind of experience. They're really getting paid over $20 an hour, because they otherwise wouldn't have gotten paid before. And so it's a real opportunity for Kentucky to leapfrog other states and for us to get a workforce pipeline that people actually know and are confident. So I'm really, if people who know me know, I'm really about 2 words. I try to focus my life on 2 words. And this sounds silly to some people, but hopefully you'll get this. I focus on hope and confidence. Okay, hope. So many of the populations that I have a passion for, single parents in particular, because my dad died when I was a kid. And my mom was a single mom. And when I finally got to a point where I started at the University of Louisville, she went back to school and got her RN degree from Jefferson and Community College. Okay. And I saw, this is the strongest person I've ever known in my entire life. I saw the struggles that she had trying to balance those 4 things I talked about earlier. The strongest person I've ever known struggled with that. I swore seeing that I'd never be okay with it. A lot of the programs that Family Scholar House does, and this program in particular, were really built because of a passion for a particular population. It just extends beyond that one population. So many of other populations deal with the same challenges. Our goal is to help them overcome those barriers, for those barriers to be speed bumps, not brick walls. The brick wall means that they never get to the other side of hope. And if you never get your hope that you're not alone and that there's somebody who's helping you, when you start to have that, you start to gain confidence. And the one thing my mom had was she was an older student. And when she started at Norton Healthcare, because she was older, she was there were a lot of mentors and preceptors who took my mom under her wing and helped her gain confidence in that skill, that she needed to become the nurse that later became a 2-time Nurse of the Year at Norton. That was because of the hope and confidence that she was able to get through other people, not by herself. We don't do that by ourselves. We do it in community. Our goal is to help be a part of that community and to build other stakeholders, the employer, the education partner, we're the nonprofit sector. I love that, you've allowed us to speak in this term because it becomes a workforce in the state, becomes a partner in this. Those are the opportunities for us to transform. And instead of continually saying we got a problem, we say we've got hope and a solution. And we're going to transform the way that we do business, because we can't continue to do it the way it's been done, or otherwise we're all going to go insane. And again, I don't say that this is a silver bullet that solves everything. I say that this could help at least 200 people this year place in your facility with your school, about giving that 200 people the beginning of their hope and confidence to be successful and to overcome those barriers so that they can become self-sufficient, productive, and really serve our patients, residents, whatever you call them, in a way that is meaningful. And we know that they're going to stay with us because we gave them something in a time when they did not have it. That gratitude extends into retention, and it extends into a want to instead of a have to.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No,
I'm
no.
obviously fairly passionate about that. I apologize for
We
getting
know
on my
the-
soapbox.
We know why you do the work that you do. Anyone else? Any questions?
Todd, I just have to say, I wrote down a lot of notes. I'm very passionate about this too, and I want to work to remove barriers for people. So I was messaging LSU. I'm going to try to find out how you can work with us in the Cumberlands.
I'd love that. I mean, and Megan,
I'm
I'm
gonna
going to
put
put,
my email in the chat.
and I'm going to put mine also, so that everybody can reach out. I know that this is no different than students. We're in a group of 20 people, and there are going to be people who are more comfortable about asking questions. Maybe they want to ask questions that are more private in nature. That's fine. Our goal is to serve you. Our goal was not to just to help this program. It does not work if we can't serve you. Yeah, other questions? This is Rod. And if there's no more questions, I would highlight one other thing about our program. So this year, we're working to evolve our program even one step further. In most of our placements, we have got a Department of Labor recognized apprenticeship for those positions. So there is a structured program that aligns directly with the same kind of things that they be learning. And so as they go through that program, the consistency and the standards. And when they come out of that program, not only are they hopefully going to have some sort of certificate or degree, they're also going to be able to gain that confidence and saying, I've gone through an apprentice program and successfully completed this apprentice program to be a nurse, to be even a CNA, to be a culinary, to be a plant ops person. It doesn't matter. There is an opportunity for us to structure that in a way that allows them to continue to be recognized in ways that bring pride to them. And that pride then becomes something where they get confidence from. And again, when you think about hope and confidence, Our job is to provide those avenues to be able to do that so that you get those employees who are truly joyful in the opportunity to work with us every day, not to work. This is my thing. Nobody works for me. Okay. I work with people. You know, I don't want to be over top somebody. I want to walk with people. And I think that that's where we have as a core value. So if your organization is interested and treats people that way and it's a core value, we're probably going to be a great fit. If all you want is to kind of, frankly, do the traditional way and just get a bunch of helpers in and basically churn and burn them, don't call us. I mean, don't call, because I can't fix what you're ailing, because that's something different. Okay. That's a culture issue that you have that goes well beyond any program's ability to help you, from my perspective.
I just
Any
had
other questions? Yeah.
I had one comment, and sorry, it took me a minute. I was processing, and then when you were talking, I started crying. So I was like, but I wanted to just say, at KHC, I'm very familiar with the AmeriCorps program. We have what we provide is a Targets of Opportunity grant each year for their nonprofits, and many of our partners have mentioned the required site match for their new AmeriCorps workers. And so those discretionary fund dollars, I'm proud to say, are eligible for that required site match. But from my experience, it is the AmeriCorps workers that are doing a lot of these innovative programs and initiatives around affordable housing. So kudos to you all on what you're doing to really, as you mentioned, build that confidence, identify candidates, and engage in a meaningful, impactful way in various industries across the Commonwealth. So again, thank you for your personal story. When you believe in what you do, you're not really selling anything. And so I absolutely love it, Todd. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's kind of you.
Todd, are you a part of the One Parent Scholar House on Horseman Lane in Lexington at all?
Actually, Family Scholar House just I don't know. I don't know how they word this, but they are now part of Family Scholar House as of last month.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with with all that yet, or is that you, or is that somebody else? I have some questions about that.
I am not, but if you connect with me, so
Okay.
in all transparency, the CEO of Family Scholar House is my best friend in this world. And
Okay,
I have
good.
a best friend, and I have a second best friend, and then a whole lot of other friends. But because we share the same passion around this mission around single parents and stuff like that, over the last 20 years, we became best friends because we share a passion.
Wonderful.
And I'll say this, that think about this in the same terms with regards to when I mentioned the importance of peers and bringing in cohorts as opposed to individuals. Okay. Because, our nature as people is to be a nature of packs. Think about the people you hang out with. I guarantee you there's something you share in common. Every single group that you hang out with and spend any time with, you share in common. All I'm going to say is we need to create those kind of opportunities for people who are trying to get into healthcare so that we can be successful at transitioning them into becoming productive members in healthcare.
Okay.
And I see that we're running out of our time, so I want to be cognizant of that. I don't like being overtime, and Alisher has been generous with this, so thank you.
Todd, thank you very much. I think you've done what we asked you to do. You've inspired, you've provided some innovation, and you have contact information in the chat for anyone to follow up. We'll be posting this on YouTube for others to see. But thank you very much to you, Todd, for everyone that came out today and for keeping the conversation moving and improving Kentucky. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Have a good rest of your day. Bye, you all.